Hey y'all, Grandma Rose here. I want to show you something that's a bad something, but I need to do it anyway. I have been cleaning up my wool socks. You know, I'm a knitter and I knit my own socks. This is a pair of socks that I knit in the past couple of years. I don't remember exactly when it was, but wool socks last a long time, so that doesn't matter. The problem is I've got a tear. I have a hole in it, and as you see, it's running back into the leg of the sock. So what I want to do, I want to fix this. I'm going to re-knit this actually, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Now let me show you here. If you can see here, there are, let me count the stitches. Pull them out a little bit so you can see them. There's 1, 2, 3. There's 4 stitches that are unraveling, that are raveling. They all need to be for me to, and I'm going to use a double-pointed knitting needle, about the size that I use when I knit them, but maybe a little bit smaller. Smaller makes it a little bit easier to work with. And I need them all to be at the same level, so these have not run down to the same spot. Now these two have. This one is just about to pull in a little bit farther. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to put my needle through this stitch right here so it doesn't go any farther. And just do that, like you could do it with a safety pin or any utensil, anything that you had that would hold it. That's the one that I'm worried about because that's getting ready to run some more. This stitch right here, see, I had another one of these. I've got a set of 5 of them. So this stitch right here is at the same level, and these two are a little bit higher. So what I'm going to do on these, as terrible as it sounds, is go ahead and pull them back, pull out this yarn, and make them at the same level. Move this as the other ones. Is that there now? Let me see. There's that. Here's this. Yeah, there we go. Let's get this one more, and I think that's going to do it. Now what I'll be able to do is put all of these stitches back on a knitting needle. And I'm going to pull on that just a little bit to get it out of that stitch. Now put all these back on the knitting needle. Put my hand underneath it. It's easier for me to work. So I'm coming in from the right side, basically through the back of the stitch. That way it will make it twist correctly on the needle. Now coming through here, put this one on. Set the whole stitch. I think I missed a thread. We want to get all the threads. Take this one back off of this needle and put this one on. That, put that one on, and put that one on. So now I've got all 4 of these stitches back on a knitting needle, and I don't need to worry about them doing anything. They're not going to move now. They can't go any farther down than they were. So now what I'm going to do, okay, now that I've got those on my knitting needle, I'm going to take a crochet hook, actually going to use a second knitting needle. Pretend like we're actually knitting with 2 needles. So a crochet hook here, put it through this needle, put it through that stitch. Oops, I missed that one. It's tedious. See, I'm dropping these stitches. Let me start over again. I've got that one out already. Let's get these other 3 back because I don't want to lose them. Okay, we've got those 3 stitches. Now I'm working only with this one stitch right here. And I'm going to take that stitch. Where's the thread that's underneath it? Which row of thread was the one that was knit with it? Take this through here. Pull up a stitch with the crochet hook through the stitch, just like that. And see, we'll keep losing these. And you know what I can do? I can continue just to use this crochet hook and not have to use another knitting needle. So I'm going to put that stitch on the crochet hook and do the same thing. Come back through here, Oops, I lost it. You got it. And pick up another stitch. Find the right thread. There's the one right there. Come back through it. Hold it a little bit taut so it'll get it. Put it back through the stitch, and it's on the crochet hook. See that? And I'm going to do the same thing. Get that stitch. We're losing a little. It keeps moving a little bit. So we're going to get this next stitch on the crochet hook. Okay. Take it off the hook and off the needle and onto the hook. But again, find that thread we were working with, and it's over here. Pull it up there and pull it through that and onto the hook. And I'm going to do the last one. Take that off. Find that thread that I was working with. Now that's the next row right there. It's going to be right here. It's just a little piece of it. But they'll all even out in the end. So there we go. I've got all 4 of those stitches done. We're going to put those back on the knitting needles. Put those back on the knitting needles. And work on the next row. And do exactly the same thing. And it is tedious. Now this is not, this is not for the faint-hearted. It is very, well, with something as tiny as socks, it's tedious. Now, if you have a larger garment, something like a sweater that's knit in a worsted weight yarn, then these needles are going to be bigger. Your crochet hook is going to be bigger, and eventually you'll get all of the stitches done. So I've shown you how to do one row, and I've got, looks like here's the thread that I've got left. Here's, let me see, is that one right there? Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 of those rows to do before I finally caught up with the rest of it. So I'm going to go sit down. Right at this point, I'm just beginning, but you see, it's really not that hard. It's just tedious. It's just a matter of getting one stitch at a time, taking the thread that is already there. There it is, right here. Move the crochet hook because that catches it. But that's the next thread that I'm going to work with. That's the next row. So I'll do exactly the same thing. I'll put the crochet hook through this stitch right here and pick up a loop and pull it through. Then we'll move on to this stitch and pick up a loop and pull it through, and continue on until we're done. And it is that easy. Now, if this were a larger hole, I probably would have to put them back on the knitting needles. But since there's just a very few stitches, I'm able to do it on the crochet hook itself. Otherwise, I might have to use a knitting needle to do it. Now, let me continue with this. Let me do one more row, and then I'm going to sit back and I want to finish this, and I will show you what to do in the end. So let's do one more and put that stitch back on the crochet hook, and pull the needle out, and then pull it back so the stitches don't fall off like that, catching those stitches. We're going to come back through here to this next row and pull up a stitch. Get it through. There we go. There's one. Get the next stitch on the needle, on the hook. Pull that back out of the way. Come back to this thread and pull up another stitch. Do it again. Get it on there a little bit. There we go. God, I don't want to look. Oops, I lost that one. Let me pick that one back up. If you don't move it, it's not going anywhere. Don't pull on it. Don't do anything. That stitch isn't going anywhere. Don't tear out your hair. There you go. We got it back. It was that easy. Now, I'm going to take the same same strand of yarn, which is right here now. It's shorter because we've already taken 2 stitches out of it. And take that, you pull up a stitch through that one, and put that stitch back on the hook, eventually like that. Find this loop of thread that we were working with. And that is right there. You see it? Right there is the loop of thread that we were working with. So I'm going to come under that, right there, and pull up a loop. I think that's right. Pretty close. I may have to fiddle with that a little bit, but there we go. That's exactly what you have to do, and then you just continue doing that every single row until you're back up at the top and you've picked up all of the stitches. Y'all, I have done one more of these rows, and as I was doing this, I realized something that I was doing that I have not shown you. So let me show you here. We've got, here are the different strands of the yarn that I'm going to be using to pick up the stitches on each of these rows below. Now, as I was sitting in my chair, right now I'm not sitting in my chair, but I was sitting down and it was easier for me to work. These other rows were getting in the way. So what I did was I pulled them up out of the way like that, and then I put in this piece of this knitting needle and put them up there, and it held it up out of the way. So now all I have is this one strand to work with, and that made it a lot easier to work. So I suggest you doing that. When I learned how to do this with lace, what we did is we pinned this to a board, like to a piece of styrofoam or something, and took pins and put a pin here and put a pin here to pin that one out, and did the same thing with each one of these strands. And that kept them up all the way, kept them out of the way, and then as we worked with one, we would take the pins out. But this works just as easily. Working on your lap, this is just a tiny little bitty hole. Okay, y'all, I am down to the last thread. Look here. There's something right there that's shouldn't be there. And let me show you what we've got here. So here is, on this side over here, do you see this? That's the broken yarn on this side of the sock. Right here is the broken piece over here. And we've got one loop left right there that I need to fix. And so what I have, you see here, some safety pins, some straight pins. Use whatever is more convenient for you, whatever you have. If you're a sewer, there's a good chance you're going to have straight pins. I personally like the safety pins better. You're less likely to stick yourself. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this thread right here that is broken. I'm going to put the safety pin through the thread a little bit, as much as I can. It's not going to really hold it very well, but I want to hold it up out of the way. Get that out of the way. I don't want that to come through because it's going to drop some more stitches. Let me close that. I'm going to do the same thing on this side here. When I pull on this, I do not want this strand of yarn to pull loose. Now see this? It's actually, see, it was a 2-ply yarn and it's come apart. So I need to take this. I'm going to twist it a little bit. Just twist it and get it up out of the way. Maybe like that, maybe, I don't know. Whatever you can do to make it stay in place. I mean, whatever you can do, you may do it differently than I did it. That's up to you. The main thing is just to keep this broken yarn up out of the way, because you don't want any more of these stitches to come loose. And that could easily, if that pulled out, then I would have more drop stitches. So right now, I only have one more piece to go. So I'm going to put this back on here. And you can see my patch. See the patch right there? This stitch right here is not very good. The rest of them don't look too bad. But is anybody going to see that when you have that on? I don't think so. take this again, put this back on the needle, on the hook. Now move all of these back to the middle of this, out of the way, so they don't come off. And then just what I was doing before, just pick up that loop, pull it through, and again, take that loop off the needle and onto the hook. Then hold the yarn. You see it's pulling on there, and pull a loop through. So this is based sort of like a combination of crochet and knitting. Then take one more loop off the needle, like that. Don't want to drop them. If you drop them, they're not going anywhere. Just don't pull on them. I'm going to stick this back through here, make it stay still. There we go. Now, take the loop right there and pull a stitch through. Make it, there you go. There we go. Pull the stitch through. And I'm going to take this last loop on the needle and do that one. So there's the last one. Move those out of the way. Last time I will need that. And there's that loop right there at the bottom. And pull a stitch up through there. Now I've got these 4 stitches. Now I lied. I said I wasn't going to do that anymore. I am going to. Put these stitches back on this needle. There's a loop that I missed right there. Let me grab that. I can fix it as I go. There we go. I got that. Here. It's tedious. Like I said before, it's just tedious. There you go. You're working with little things. Now, I'm all the way up at the top. And what I need to do then is to sew these stitches up to here. So let me see how I'm going to do that. Now, I also want to be sure that these don't come out. So I'll show you what I do that in a minute. Let me get a tapestry needle, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Oh my goodness, y'all, my dog has seen a squirrel out the window. And, squirrel. I can't get this open. I'm having a hard time. No, it's not that difficult. This thing right here, just a little piece of plastic pipe with a rubber cap on top of it. But what this is, look at this. It says it's a Lose Me Not. It's by Jan B. Smiley on Etsy. Now, I don't know if she still has her shop or not, but this is a really convenient little thing. And in it, I keep my, there's a little safety pin. And this is like a safety pin, but it looks like a light bulb. Loop at the top, and this is good for using as a marker, a stitch marker on your knitting. Or you can mark it on your crochet because you can take it on and off. Mark a stitch. So it's a stitch marker. And this is the size needle that I want to use. Let me show you the difference in these two. Well, see, this one is a little bit bigger than the other. You see that? I'm going to use the smaller one. I'm going to use this one. I'm just going to take a piece of red yarn. It's not exactly the same color. This is more orangey. And if I looked hard enough, I probably could find this yarn, but I don't think it's going to matter what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take a length of the yarn. Not going to take really much. Take a length of the yarn and thread this needle. Now, do you know how to thread yarn through a tapestry needle? Don't try to do it like that. It's not like, you don't do it like you're threading thread through a needle. The way to do it is to take your yarn, wrap it around the needle like that. Let me move this out of the way. Let me do this again so you can see it. So you take your yarn and you wrap it around the needle. Let's wrap it around the needle. And then when you do that, you pull it tight. Pull it tight until you pinch it between your fingers. And then you pull the needle out and you have this little piece between your fingers like that you can then push through the hole in the needle. And there you go. You can get it threaded like that. It's a lot easier than trying to do it with the end. If you don't learn anything else, I think that's a good thing to learn. So I'm going to come up here. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is work from this side, work from the front. I'm going to put a stitch on the needle. Take a stitch on the needle. And I'm going to come up here to where I think the stitch was lost, and that's up in here. I may do it 2 stitches. Come up here. And I'm leaving an end. I'm going to pull that through in a little while. Come back here again. Take this stitch. Pull it up here. I want to get into this stitch right here next. Put it in there. And you see I'm leaving it loose. I'm not pulling it tight. Take this again, 1 more stitch, take that, put it on the thread. Don't lose that. Don't lose that last one. Keep that on the needle. Take this stitch up, putting it to this loop right here. When I went up a 2nd stitch, see that? Okay. Now I'm going to take this last one right there, put it on the needle, and again I'm going to come up in here with that and pull it loose. Or pull it not loose. Now take both ends and pull it tight. See that? I'm going to take this through, turn this inside out, and turn this through to the back side, like that. Like so. Let's turn it inside out. Just put that through there like that so it doesn't get lost, just like you're sewing. And I'm going to turn this inside out, turn the sock out. And I'm still working up here. So here is this stitch that I just did. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to catch it a couple more times up in here. Through that and through that. We're darning it at this point. Trying to catch these. And it helps to actually break the thread a little. I don't mean break the thread, but split the thread when you're doing it. You're less likely to pull it out. And coming in here and just kind of splitting through the thread and coming in here and catching in here. There's going to be something right there probably. And again over here. See what's going on there. Catch that. Now, what does it look like from this side? Looks pretty good. So the next thing I want to do here. Okay, there's the thread here. Where I started it there. So put my finger there so I know where it is. Stick my crochet hook right through there. And that should be, you see that right through there. And I should be able to pull that thread to the inside. And there we did. So what I'm going to do, actually what I'm going to do here, not a great idea, but a lot of people do it. I'm going to tie a knot. I'm going to tie a knot right there. Not a tight knot, but just a loop. Right through there. Let's see what that looks like from the front side. It's not too bad, is it? The next thing to do is to work on these threads right here. I don't want those to come undone. So let me take this out. Now, there's that stitch right there that I want to work with. And again, I'm going to find where that is right there. I'm not even looking from the back side. I'm just going to poke this crochet hook. There's a hole right there. I'm going to catch that thread and I'm going to pull it back to the wrong side. Here we go. You know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm actually going to take this yarn right here. I'm going to tie a knot. Knots are not always great, but in an instance like this where you've got this broken yarn, it's just a tiny little piece. So I'm doing like a square knot. So there's that piece right there. We're going to put this one back through. Well, how about instead of trying to do that one, we're going to do this little one through it. The easiest way might be to do it like that and catch it and pull it through. Let's see. Nope, that's not going to work. I thought it might. Turn this around so I can see what I'm doing. So that was on the back side, right, of that knot. I'm just going to pull this back through here and finish the knot. There you go. So I've got a knot there. And that knot is holding that thread there that had come loose. Now I can come through and I can make this more neat. Neaten it up. Now again, we've got this thread right here. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this thread and my crochet hook right here. Here's that thread right there. My crochet hook right there next to it. Well, let's find it. It fell out. Right there next to it. And I'm going to pull that thread back to the back side. And there we go. There it is. Now let's see what I can do with that one to make that work better. Because I've got all these knots over here on this side. This does not. So I think what I'm going to do, let me show you this. I think this is going to work. There's my tapestry needle right here. Take that off that. Now remember what I told you not to do? I think we're going to have to do that here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tapestry needle and I'm going to weave through here like that. And another place like that. And another place like that. And another place like that. Like that, just like that. How long is this? Maybe one more. Let's come in here, that one. Make it longer than I think that thread is. Just looping through, sewing through, and picking up part of these stitches. Just like that with the tapestry needle. And you notice the tapestry needle is not threaded. Now at this point, I'm just wetting my finger. A little bit of spit. Saliva. And now I'm going to do the same thing, except I don't have enough room to wrap that over the needle. I'm just going to fold it on itself and pinch it and get it to go through that hole. And there that happened, like that. Now what I'm going to do is pull this thread through, and it's going to pull that loop through, like that. And it automatically weaves that in. Do you see how easy that was? That's what you do if your yarn is too short to actually thread through the needle, leaving a piece of it to work with the needle. You weave the needle itself through the stitches first, and then you can thread the needle and pull the thread through. So now what I have to do here then is to weave these ends in, and this is essentially finished. All I have to do is take my crochet hook or my tapestry needle and to weave like I did there on this side, weave in the stitches, pull it through, and then I can cut it off and I don't have to do any more knots in it. And I should not have done that knot, but I really did not want, that piece was pretty little and I did not want that to come loose, and it's not going to. So let's turn this back around to the right side and see what this looks like. And fuzz and lint and all this stuff on here, because I have worn these many years. Now let's find here, there's the hole right there. It's not perfect. So you can see this red yarn right here. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. So that is how to repair a hole in your knitting without actually darning it. We know how to darn. I'll show you how to darn something in another video. But in this video, I've shown you how to pick up the stitches at the bottom that were coming loose, put them on a knitting needle, and then to crochet and actually pick up the stitches one strand at a time until you get back up to the top, and then to finish the hole. And that's all there was to it. It really wasn't hard. It was tedious. But, you know, tedium is something that we all live with. So bye, y'all. See you next time, and happy knitting. Okay, y'all, let me tell you one more thing before I finish here. What I have just shown you is how to repair drop stitches in a finished garment. Now, if this is a work in progress, if you already have or still have the stitches on your needle and you're not finished, then what you can do is, generally you're not going to have that many stitches that are dropped at one time. It'll be maybe only one stitch, and you can leave the stitches up on your needle and one stitch at a time. Pick it up from the bottom and using your crochet hook, weave it up to the top and put it back on your needle, or it will be on the right hand needle, and you're going to be working from the left hand needle. Now I'll get out my needles and show you again. So let's say we have the two needles and stitches are on the needles. And you've dropped a stitch. What you would do, so you're going to leave these stitches on the needle. Let's pretend that those are there. They're on the needle. You've dropped a stitch. What you would do then is to take your crochet hook and to pick up the stitch and work it one stitch at a time where it's dropped down until you get back up to the stitches that are on your needle. Then you would put that stitch on this needle. And then you would come over and you would pick up the next stitch and work it one stitch at a time until you got up to the top, and then you would put it back on the needle. And it's not a hard thing to do. When you realize that you've dropped a stitch, it's, oh my goodness, I've dropped a stitch, what am I going to do? It's very, very easy to fix. And sometime when I'm knitting, when I'm actually in the process of knitting a garment, I will demonstrate how to do that. But I just want to tell you that that is different. That's a different process from what I just showed you. What I have just shown you is essentially darning. It's a very neat way to darn something. It's like a combination of re-knitting and darning at the same time. So you pick up the stitches and you re-knit them, and then when you get back up to where the hole started, then you have to darn it. Darn it. But, you know, at this point, this was right up here at the cuff of the sock. And it's easily hidden. I could have done a better job right here. That stitch right there looks like I didn't pick up as well as I could have. And if I were being a perfectionist, I would have dropped that stitch back down to there and done it all over again. I messed up something right there, but you know, I'm not worried about that. It's a darn, and it's working, and it sure is a lot better than working from the back side and trying to reweave it. And it's going to leave an ugly mark where you've darned it. It would be much, much more noticeable if you've darned it from the back side. This way works better. So try it sometime. Okay, y'all, I'm going to take this back to my chair where I'm sitting down. I'm going to watch a video while I'm working on this, and I will finish weaving in these ends, and I will come back to you and show you what it looks like when I'm done. See you in a minute. Okay, I have finished weaving. I have woven in the ends, or I could say I have finished weaving in the ends of the yarn where I made my patch, where I started darning this. And what I have left, open this up here, you can see, is one thread here and one thread here. Let's see if you can see these stitches that I've taken. It's like right in there. There's some through here, and there's maybe a few right in there. I've just wrapped the thread around just half of the stitch, and on the outside you don't see that. This is the darn. That's the repair that I just made. So let's take these off. Now I have finished weaving in these ends, and I'm just going to take my scissors, and I'm not going to clip it all the way to there. I'm going to leave just a little bit of a tag there. This is on the inside. It's not going to show, but it's not also not going to pull out to the outside. We don't want that to happen. So just leave just a little bit of a tag, maybe a 1/4 of an inch, maybe. Be sure you're not cutting through your stitches, and clip that off. And the repair's done. Look at this. I can wear that sock again and not have to worry about it going through the wash and ripping down farther than it already did. One thing I want to tell you about this yarn. I don't know if you're aware of the different kinds of yarn that are used in knitting socks, and this is beyond this video, but I keep talking about laundering it. This yarn is called a superwash. In other words, it is made where you can actually wash it in the washing machine and it's not going to shrink. Now, I prefer to wash my socks by hand, but you can wash these in the washing machine. And you can actually dry them in the dryer too, but you stand a chance of them shrinking a little bit if you put them in the dryer. So what I usually do, if I have a whole lot of socks to do at one time, I will do a whole load of socks on the gentle cycle on my machine. Wash them in cold water and with my laundry detergent, and then just like the gentle cycle, and then not dry them in the dryer. I might hang them out on the line if it's a pretty day. Today I hung them, when I wash them, I have a gas stove, a gas heater in my living room, and I just turned the gas heater on and put them on my drying rack, and they were done in not long at all. But there you go. There is how to repair a hole. Drop stitches in a finished garment. I thought I was finished with this, and as I was watching the video back after, that I had just recorded, looking here at this graft. It's not a graft. I misspoke. Okay, here's the repair that we made. Here's where I reknit that patch, and this, like I mentioned before, there's a little mistake right there. And I got up into here, and I actually sewed this together like it was being darned. I sewed these two pieces together. Now, if any of you have any experience knitting, or have ever knitted a pair of socks or other garments as well, there is a method called Kitchener stitch. It's not Kitchener, it's Kitchener stitch. And it's a method of grafting 2 live sets of stitches. So that would be like if I had, let me put this on here, we're just going to pretend that I had live stitches on this needle, okay, and I had live stitches on this needle, 2 sets of live stitches, with a hole in the middle, right there in the middle. There's a method, like I mentioned, called Kitchener stitch, where you actually graft those stitches together and it forms an invisible seam. It looks like it's been completely knit all in one piece with no hole, and you cannot tell where it's been repaired. Now, I could have shown you how to do that, but that was beyond what after I started working on this, I didn't want to get into doing Kitchener stitch, and I could have. I could have picked up these stitches along this top edge, and I had live stitches. I had 4 live stitches down here on the bottom edge. I could have put those 2 together with a Kitchener stitch, and you would not have been able to see the graft at all. It would have been invisible. As it is, it shows. I mean, you can see it. It shows. I admit it. It's not perfect. It's okay. It's good. It works. It's functional. The main point that I was making at this point was just to be functional, where the hole is not going to ravel anymore. Let me show you an example of Kitchener stitch. Okay, here's a pair of socks. It's a sock. Here's a pair of socks. Here's one sock that I knitted. I have worn it once, and I've already got animal hair on it, cat hair on it. I've worn these socks one time, but what I want to show you is the toe. Okay, when you're knitting a pair of socks, I use a method where I'm using one single needle, a circular needle, and all of the stitches stay on the needle, and I'm able to use, the circular needle has a plastic cord and 2 needle tips on it. So you end up with live stitches on one side and live stitches on the other side. So here's some on this side, and here's some on this side. And you have to join them together to form the toe. And Kitchener stitch is the method that's used for that. Let me show you what it looks like after it's finished. Probably this purple line right there. I think that's what that is. Okay, do you see these stitches right across here? Those are the stitches that were on this needle. Let me flip it over. Yep. These right here are the stitches that were on the other needle. Now, do you see that purple line coming across the middle? That's the graft. That is what the Kitchener stitch looks like when it's done. And if you didn't know that there probably should not have been a purple line right there, you know, it's intersecting these light stitches right here, and there's just one strand of dark purple. You would never have known that this was not knit as one piece. And that's the beauty of the Kitchener stitch. And it's relatively complicated. It's another one of those things. You have to wrap your head around it. Wrap your brain around it, and then it's not that hard at all. But it's one of those things that you need to do probably several times, and every time you do it, you're going to have to get out the instructions to remember how to do it each time. But that's Kitchener stitch, and I could have done that at the top of that sock, and I would have had an invisible seam just like that to make that repair. So in case anybody has looking at this video where they have seen me make this repair on the sock where all I did was sew it up, I knew better. I could have done the Kitchener stitch, and it would not have looked like that. It would have looked like there was a seamless continuing in the rib right here and on into the stockinette part of the sock. And I could have done it, but I didn't. So there you go, y'all. Bye, y'all. Happy knitting. See you next time.